The comments and views expressed on The Moore Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The Moore Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Delighted to be here. I love talking about UFOs anywhere.
Well, I wanted to say those words for so many years. Stanton Friedman, welcome to the show. I've wanted to get you on for a long time. Do you know that? But our paths have just not crossed. But they have now, and I'm grateful.
Right. Well, you must get to Fredericton, New Brunswick often.
Well, I hear. Well, yeah. Whereabouts is that? I know it's cold, but whereabouts in the US is that?
It's in Canada, and it's east of Maine.
How dare I use the words, where in the US is that? Right, you're in Canada. Of course you are. I knew that.
And I'm 73 miles from beautiful downtown Holton, Maine, which is on the border between Canada and New Brunswick and the USA. And a few 300 miles from Montreal, east of there.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, I'm going to be traveling the US quite a bit this year. I'm about to say next year then, but have to pinch myself. It's 2017.
Yep.
Yeah, already.
All year.
Yeah, I know, right? What an amazing year this is going to be. Do you think it's going to be an amazing year for for ufology in general? Do you think we're going to have any major disclosures, or do you think that's just a pie in the...
I don't know. I gave up a long time ago making predictions like that. Who knows what's going on? And with the new president and a whole bunch of new guys sitting in the seats of power, I have no idea. And I am sort of a strange concern. One of the things that worries me about Donald Trump is, can he be trusted with classified information? He shoots from the hip so much, like he feels he can say whatever's in his mind or tweet it or whatever. And I worry about his fouling up classified things or spitting them out or whatever. He's never had to be in a situation where he didn't decide what it was that gets said. But now there are rules, and so I'm a little concerned about that. It might turn out well on the one hand, but one of the things, I have never advocated this let's disclose everything viewpoint, because I think there's some good reasons for security, like technology that we may have learned from Roswell and Kecksburg and the plains of San Augustine and places like that. And also, if we've learned anything from recovery of wreckage, should we put it on the table if the Russians and Chinese don't put out what they have learned? That doesn't make sense to me. Also, if you're going to tell the world, oh, by the way, there are alien civilizations visiting here. We don't know what they want. We don't know where they're from. We don't know what's in store, but we thought you ought to know. And that makes no sense to me, because you get upheaval. Think of religion. There have been plenty of... There are some fundamentalists who say all the intelligent life in the universe is right here on planet Earth, and this UFO stuff's the work of the devil. Where would they be? So there are some serious considerations about how do we get from where we are. I mean, I don't like the cosmic Watergate, but having worked under security for 14 years, I understand that there are some reasons sometimes for covering things up.
Well, I mean, do you think that truth that we're not alone, if the government has any truth that we're not alone, that it would destroy civilization? How would I handle it? I mean,
I don't know whether it would destroy. Yeah. I doubt if it would destroy civilization. But remember, people on this planet think of themselves as Russians, Greeks, Peruvians, Chileans. They have national identities. How many people? Where are you from? Well, I'm an Earthling. That's not a common response, And yet, to an alien, we are all Earthlings, like it or not. I mean, it's perfectly obvious we don't like it. We'll spend $1 trillion this year on things military. Last war we had, we only killed 50 million people, destroyed 1,700 cities. Earthlings aren't nice guys. Are we ready for a whole new approach to where we fit? That military budget alone is, somebody's going to say, well, wait a minute, what are we going to do about all that? How do we convert from where we are to where we might like to be? And so these are major problems, and I don't think they're getting a lot of attention. Do you?
No, but when you think about it, why have they not shown themselves to the masses if they
yes, you're asking the wrong question. Why should they? They know we know they're here. When you're being picked up on radar all over the place. They know that some vehicles have crashed and they've been recovered by us. So what's to tell us? What do they care what you and I think?
Well, they must care enough to be coming here. I mean, surely...
Oh, well, that's a different question. If you're saying, why would they come here? One of my books has a long list of reasons. One is to quarantine us. We're not nice guys. We tend to forget. We're a pretty primitive society. We didn't even know how the sun produces its energy until 1938. And we didn't explode our first fusion device until 1952. That's not very long ago. But we have exploded 2,000 nuclear weapons on this planet. If I were an alien, I certainly wouldn't want Earthlings to go out there, and yet we've successfully tested fission nuclear rockets. I worked on a study of fusion for deep space travel. That's what powers all the stars, not just a few of them, all of them. Nuclear fusion. I worked on a study of fusion for deep space propulsion in 1962. And the answer was, if you put up the dough, you can go. Dough meaning money over here. They would come here, let me rattle off some reasons, to mine the resources. The Earth is the densest planet in the solar system. Cubic foot of Earth weighs more than a cubic foot of any other planet in our solar system. That means more heavy metals, and heavy metals, we know from studying the spectra of stars, are relatively rare. Things like osmium and rhenium and stuff like that. 120 years ago, the major use for uranium, another heavy metal, was as yellow coloring agents for dinnerware. That's illegal now because it's radioactive. But we didn't know that. Rare earths are very important right now. Who was using rare earths for anything 100 years ago? The aliens may have been stealing them. There are over 1,000 reports on record of unidentified, I'll say surface objects, oceanic objects, things coming out of the sea or into the sea. What are they doing down there? Stealing hunks of metal? I don't think they're going down there for a good fish dinner. So also, what if we're somebody's colony? What if we're somebody's crop? Maybe this is a penal colony. They dumped all the bad boys and girls here, and that's how we make such a mess of things. That's why we're so nasty to each other. Maybe they've been using us as a refueling station for years. And now it's getting a little complicated because there's too many Earthlings and too much radar and too many airplanes and all that sort of stuff. We don't know what's going on. It's like the position of the American Indians when they got invaded by other civilizations. Well, these guys won. Why should we know? And certainly if you mentioned rhenium, one of my favorite metals, the average person says, I have no idea what that is. It's a very high melting point, very dense metal. Got all kinds of good properties at very high temperature. But a normal person doesn't care about that, doesn't know about it. Also, who knows? Maybe we're... there's some very recent work that suggests that two thermonuclear weapons, fusion devices, H-bombs, if you will, have been exploded on Mars in the deep past. Dr. John Brandenburg, a scientist with a PhD in physics, has published papers at respectable organization meetings saying two of them. Now, who the heck built those? Wasn't our society. It may have been somebody who lived here then, I don't know. But that raises serious concerns. Where did those come from? Why were they detonated? Were the Martians attacking other Martians? Or were there some outsiders saying, the heck with you guys, splat? We just don't know. But as soon as you allow for travel between societies, and I get so sick, I just read something today about it would take so long to get here from another star. Well, at 1g acceleration, which we can all stand since we are, gravity is pulling on us, it only takes a year to get to the speed of light. A year, not 100 years, not 1,000 years. Why are people... And also, you read a lot of stuff will say the nearest civilization has got to be hundreds of light years away. What? What nonsense. Within 100 light years of here, where you are and where I am, where the planet is, there are 10,000 stars. 10,000. Now, the galaxy is 100,000 light years across, so 100 light years just down the street. And the latest data from Kepler, the space satellite, the space telescope, if you will, which I'm a great admirer of, it's searching an area of the sky that's only the size of a fist at arm's length. Hold that up and you'll see. It only covers a small chunk of the sky. But on the average now, the results seem to indicate there is a planet per star. Some say 1.6 planets per star. Make it only one. Okay, that suggests there are 10,000 planets within 100 light years. I'm not saying they all have civilizations. They don't need to. Maybe only 10%. 1,000. That's still a lot of stuff out there. We've been around for 4 billion years. I suggest the place has been, overrun with aliens zipping by hither, thither, and yon from time to time, doing their thing. Not many people crossed the Atlantic 500 years ago, that year, but thousands, millions actually do it every year now, because we have the means for doing it and the reason for doing it. Things change.
That's so true. Yeah, that's all very true. But could you look at this from are we looking at it from the wrong perspective? Are we not? Do you think if we looked at it from a consciousness perspective, a more advanced spiritual perspective, not religion, but a more advanced spiritual perspective, that there's and then a different reason for them coming here?
Oh, that would be one of the reasons that I'd list. I certainly would expect any advanced technological civilization to know more about the spirit world than we do. We fight it like crazy, even wanting to say that there is a spirit world. I expect them to know about reincarnation, telepathy, all these crazy things we don't like to think about. One of my mantras, if you will, is that technological progress comes from doing things differently in an unpredictable way. Wouldn't it be nice if you could call up somebody by telepathy, so to speak? No wires, no machines, no phone to hand, no computer to touch, et cetera, et cetera. So I would be astonished if they didn't know stuff about the the spirit world, if you will.
Well, if that's the case, and they do, could we look at this then, that not the majority, but the minority in a sense, maybe, who knows, maybe it's a majority that come here, that they are not going to force their truth onto us, and, you know, that we worship them as gods. And in a sense, we have to come up to our own truth. We have to increase our spiritual level, peace, love, acceptance, forgiveness, and get to a different level for them to be able to even have first contact with us in that sense.
Well, I'm not saying they haven't had first contact with us. There have been plenty of people picked up specimens, if you will, catch and release program from Zeta Reticuli, whatever you want to call it. So sure, plenty of room. I didn't say we were worth talking to, but that's why I mentioned the word quarantine. I would certainly think it was in their best interest not to let us take our brand of friendship out there. We're a primitive society. Our major activity is tribal warfare. Just look around. The military budget on the planet this year is a cool $1 trillion. How many thousand kids died of starvation yesterday?
Well, yes, no, that's so true. But what if they understood, coming from a different perspective, that maybe, you know, we are consciousness having a human experience. We have chosen to come into these bodies to have this experience. There's a veil that allows us to forget our true connection of who we are. We're here to remember that connection, remember our connection to what really is the true essence, which is love, and all the nuances that covers. And, you know, they look at us from a perspective of maybe they genetically altered us to have the soul come in the body like it is, so that, you know, we can have these experiences, and that, you know, we are at the beginning levels of where they were many millennia or more ago.
Well, I'm not saying that's not happening. I don't know. All I know is what is seen, how we react to it, the technology that is observed, that these are important phenomena.
Yes, they are.
And I'm sure the aliens would not want us to use their technology against each other, or against them, for that matter.
Well, you see, this is what I love about you as well. You know, you're very much, well, a lot of people would say that you're very much matter of facts. It's all about the facts, and leave the fiction to the skeptics in a sense.
Well, I'm interested in the whole ball of wax, the whole can of worms, if you will.
But can I ask you something? See, not a lot of people in this field are like you, where they're not embracing both. It's either very much nuts and bolts, or it's the other end, which is very much the consciousness end. And you must have seen as well that in this field, as for the 38 years or more that you've been doing this since 1978. I hope I've got that number right. I
gave my first lecture in 1967. I started the Roswell investigation.
Sorry. Right, yeah, I'm thinking of the Roswell investigation. I was born in 78, that's why 78 is standing out to me, right? Right?
A young punk.
Yeah, I guess so. And yeah, it just, you must have seen a shift in the researchers. Okay, the researchers are dropping off a little bit, but then there's a new paradigm coming in, which is the consciousness angle on all this work as well.
Well, I don't pay too much. I do have to be aware of it, I'll put it that way. But I am a nuts and bolts guy, and what fascinates me is that somebody's come here, and he obviously has he or she both have a purpose in coming here, but I can look around and see lots of purposes for coming here. It's like the discovery of America. Yeah, Columbus went to see what he could see, but there were those who followed him who came here for all kinds of different reasons. Some to convert the heathen, the consciousness thing, if you will. Others to steal the gold.
Yeah.
Others to bring back slaves. Others to bring back vegetables. I mean, the potato and the tomato, and corn and stuff like that. You wouldn't have thought those as primary attributes, but they're important. And so, who knows what do they say to each? What do the natives say after the 27th ship shows up down in the Caribbean? What the heck do these guys want? Some of them are good guys, some are bad guys. Some of them shoot first and ask questions later. Others say, "Hi, guys. What can you do for us? What can I do for you?" Both things go on, I think. So it's not a simple world in which we live. As long as you have the means of getting there and back, and that applies whether you're talking about star to star or country to country, then there are all kinds of possibilities for why you do, graduate students doing their thesis work on the development of a primitive society. Linguists. How come there's so darn many languages on this planet? Anthropologists. How come there's so many different skin colors here? Shouldn't you don't find that in elephants, or giraffes? But earthlings, holy cow. Tall, short, fat, thin, black, white, yellow. What a motley crew we are here.
It's so true what you say. I love what you're saying. It's so true, and this will give people a lot to think about. And if that's just on Earth, well, in a universe that maybe is infinitive, right? What's the possibility for what's going on out there?
Well, all kinds of stuff, and we tend to forget that until the 1920s. We thought that our galaxy was it. That's the universe, the Milky Way galaxy. Isn't it marvelous? Then Edwin Hubble came along and made some discoveries, and suddenly, hey, there are other galaxies out there. And now, thanks to the Hubble telescope, among other things, we know there are zillions of galaxies out there, each of them with zillions of stars. And from everything we can judge, planetary formation is kind of a natural part of the evolution of a star. Not all the same, and there are big ones and fat ones and slow ones and thin ones, so to speak. But, there's a lot going on. And sure, it's nice to think we're unique. Hey, and that's what we would have said, 80 years ago? Hey, this is the only solar system around. We don't know of any other. And we're the only planet that's got life on it. So we're at the top of the heap. Sorry. I don't think that makes any sense at all.
You're a funny man. I've got to say that you're a funny man. I'm glad you've got your sense of humor in all this. I really am. How?
Hey, when it's 10 below zero in the morning, you gotta have a sense of humor to live here.
Right, of course, right, absolutely. How has, throughout all these years of doing this work, right? I know, you've given different answers for this in the past, and that's cool, where you say, the reason for getting into this. I mean, of course, there was a fundamental reason, you had a book that, that you ordered that you didn't need to get, that was going to save you on shipping, and, this got you into the UFO universe.
But then I found the great Project Blue Book Special Report 14 and proof that the United States government Secretary of the Air Force was lying through his teeth.
Exactly.
That made me angry.
Exactly.
And he really was lying. And there had to be a reason for it. In other words, I don't think officials at that level lie just because they enjoy lying. I think there's got to be a matter of policy. And I think you can see what that policy was if you look at the statements made by Air Force General Carol Bolender. He was an engineer working on the Lunar Excursion Module back in the late 60s. And after the University of Colorado study was finished, where Dr. Condon recommended that Project Blue Book be closed because it wasn't contributing anything to science or intelligence, the Air Force asked General Bolender, who had nothing to do with Blue Book now, hands completely his own, so to speak, asked him, what should we do about Blue Book? And he wrote a report, a memo, which we didn't see until 10 years later, and I think then by accident. But anyway, in this memo, which resulted in the closure of Project Blue Book at the end of 1969, General Bolender said reports of UFOs which could affect national security are not part of the Blue Book system. That's an extraordinary statement. Because Air Force program, of course, what else were they concerned about than national security? He said they're made in accordance with JNAP, Joint Army Navy Air Force Publication 146, or Air Force Manual 55-11, and are not part of the Blue Book system. And 2 paragraphs later, he says, if we close Project Blue Book, the public won't have a place to report UFO sightings. However, as previously noted, reports which could affect national security will continue to be investigated using the procedures designed for that purpose. Now, what in the world is going on? Because the Air Force was saying no national security aspect, and we're not doing anything more. We closed Project Blue Book. I managed to locate General Bollinger. You can't. He's dead. Well, maybe you can. Maybe you have friends on the other side, conscious raising friends. I don't know. But I managed to locate him, talk to him on the telephone. And I said, explained that I'd had a clearance for 14 years, very interested in UFOs, read his memo with great interest. I said, it sounds to me like you're saying that there are two separate communication channels. One for things that could affect national security, like a report I'd heard about 2 weeks before of a saucer going down the runway at a strategic air command base where nuclear weapons were stored. Now, by definition, I would presume it's a matter of national security. And then if my wife and I are driving along and see a flying saucer, big deal, people see them all the time. And he said, yes, two separate communication channels. Well, that raises the question then, where did those reports go that could affect national security? And I think I have an answer. I'm sure it's been the title's been changed, but Operation Majestic-12. You know, there's a whole big fuss, and there are people tell you, oh, that's all fraudulent stuff. Yes, there are a lot of phony MJ-12 documents. It's the 4 genuine ones that I am concerned about. You know, there are a lot of isotopes that aren't fissionable. If I want to build a reactor, I use uranium-235. Right. It is.
Yeah. So you do feel there is some truth in the. Okay, there's 4 documents that you feel in the MJ-12 documents that are genuine. Yeah.
Yes, as a matter of fact, Philip Glass, one of the great skeptics or debunkers or skepti-bunkers or whatever you want to call them, I've heard worse, challenged me on one of those 4, the Cutler-Twining memo. Maybe you didn't notice it was done in the large pica type, but it says NSC at the top, the National Security Council. The National Security Council only used small elite type, and I've got 9 samples to prove it. I challenge you to find any other genuine documents, and he had a bunch of criteria, that on the same size and style type, and I'll even pay you $100 each up to a maximum of 10. Well, I went to my files. I found loads of pica type documents. That's interesting. Then I was going to the Eisenhower Library, so when I went there, I looked, and I found 14 that matched all his criteria. Looking at that point in time, made copies, sent them for a set, and also an invoice for $1,000 because he said a limit of 10, unfortunately. And he paid me $1,000 for proving him wrong about the typeface. I didn't find out until after that. He had never been to the Eisenhower Library. I checked twice with them and the Truman Library. And the Eisenhower Library had 250,000 pages of NSC material. Not 250,000 pages. Now, no rational person could say, I've got 9, they are done in the same typeface, so all 250,000 must be done in the same typeface. Right? Nonsense. Typical of the intellectual bankruptcy of the pseudoscience of anti-ufology. I like the way that sounds. But, I mean, you know, that's typical of the attacks that have been made on MJ-12. And also, I made a great discovery. They listed in one of the 4 documents, lists the members of this group, 12 members. And don't ask me why 12, the Supreme Court or the 12 disciples. I don't know why. But anyway, one of them was Dr. Donald Howard Menzel, a Harvard University professor of astronomy, and a total debunker. Wrote 3 books, wrote many articles. Now, what's he doing on a group? Everybody else had a high-level security clearance. Well, you don't need a security clearance to teach astronomy at Harvard. To make a long story short, I had to get permission from 3 different people to look at his papers at Harvard and discovered to my total shock, because I didn't like him while he was alive, that as he told John F. Kennedy, you know, the president, they knew each other. When there's one area where I may be able to be of assistance to you, this is after Kennedy was elected in 1960, but before he took office. That's with regard to the National Security Agency. I have a longer continuous association with them, 30 years, of anybody in the country. When we are properly cleared to each other, I can tell you more. That's what he tells the president, mind you. So I did a lot of digging. It turned out nobody knew this. I certainly didn't know it. That he also was a world-class cryptologist, which is not surprising since he was with the NSA and did all kinds of classified work for all kinds of people. But it's a perfect example of something important going on that we knew nothing about. Now, I've been attacked for saying Menzel was part of this group, but none of these people have gone to the archives and looked at the darn papers. Don't bother me with the facts. My mind's made up.
Exactly.
Well, that's not my approach. Have facts in hand before putting mouth in gear is my approach.
No. That's a great saying that you use, and it's so true. It really is. I mean, how did these people live with themselves with that truth? I mean, how do you live with that truth?
It's easy. Look, I had a clearance, as I said, for 14 years. I never told my wife anything that was classified. People say, oh, those MJ-12 guys would have talked to their wives. No, they wouldn't. First of all, you're breaking the law to reveal classified information to people without an appropriate clearance and need to know. And secondly, you realize that you can't control what she says that she might repeat innocently, and you can't tell your friends without telling your enemies. Basic rule.
But that truth...
There's a need for security.
Sure. But to keep that truth, what that does to you internally, that you know that there's life out there, conscious life, and the questions that must prevail in your brain as as time goes on. I mean,
these are all thinking people. That's food for thought.
It must change you. It must change you at a deeper level. It must do.
Well, I would suppose it would. I would think so.
I mean, that's a question I was going to ask yourself, actually, before we got into MJ-12, was how have you changed in this process from when you started back in the day to where you are now? How have you changed personally, or maybe, oh God, how could I term it?
I can say that I've certainly taken a stand back and look at the whole scene, at this whole planet. I do consider myself an Earthling. I mean, I'm a dual citizen anyway, so I got more than one sense of loyalty. I'm a Canadian and an American, but I can complain about both governments legally, you understand. But it's forced me to think about things in a different way, and that's good. I mean, about religion, there are some strange questions. Did Jesus die to save them? Who knows? Maybe there are all kinds of stories in the Bible that have been interpreted as being visitations from aliens.
Well, yes, when you consider the resurrection of Christ and the ascension of Christ, I mean, these things have never happened again. We've never had anything detailed to say that they've happened again. So, people die for this religion as much as they die for Islam as well. Where did this information for this text come from? Was it?
I don't know. I'm curious too.
Interesting, isn't it, when you consider all these things? So you have gone on a deep internal journey as well. Do you think, look, this is quite a spiritual show that I do. We talk about people's issues on this show. It's not their issues, but how, through their journey, they've healed some of their deep internal issues that they've had. Do you think that's, if you reflect back on your life, do you think any issues that you had, any things that made you not always live a happy life, that through doing this work, you've been able to heal those issues by living your purpose?
Gee, that's an interesting way to put it. I hadn't thought of it that way before. I would say so. I am pleased at what I do. I am pleased at the response. And one of the things that surprises people, many people think, oh, you must get a hard time, Stan. You come on so strong. I've had 11 hecklers and well over 700 lectures, and 2 of them were drunk. You get that many if you're talking about sports, religion, politics, stuff like that. So, contrary to what people think, I have not been the target of, bows and slings and arrows from outraged other people. I'm not saying everybody agrees with me. That's not what I'm saying. Never, no matter what subject. But I have found that the world wants to know more about this, that most people are curious, and that, as the polls indicate, there are more believers than non-believers. So I must be doing something right, that I don't get the slings and arrows, so to speak.
Well, you've got a lot of people that love you.
Well, I think so. It's kind of strange. I'm a celebrity here in Fredericton. It's a town of 50,000 people. And my picture was in the paper this morning, as a matter of fact, and showing 2 of my books. I've written 6, or my name is on 6. I'm co-author on 3 of them. The newest one came out just a few months ago, Fact Fiction Flying Saucers. Myself, Stanton Friedman, and Kathleen Marden. She's Betty Hill's niece.
I know, that's amazing.
And she and I wrote the book Captured. She did most of the work, the Betty and Barney Hill UFO experience. We also done one that we both enjoyed, Science Was Wrong. 14 chapters. We each did 7. Smart people saying stupid things each chapter. You know, man will never fly in a vehicle's great astronomer 2 months before the Wright brothers first flight.
Yeah.
Space travel is utter bilge, said the British astronomer Royal in 1956.
That's right.
Sputnik went up the next year. So we get a kick out of those, but you learn something from that. You got to be careful about what you say. Have facts in hand before putting mouth in gears. I said before.
Well, I'm glad.
It's gonna change.
I'm glad you're very very. I mean, you're very transparent in your interviews anyway. I appreciate your transparency right now, and to sharing that, because I know you've gone through.
Does that mean you can see right through me? No.
Well, no. Well, psychically, maybe, but I know in your family, right? I know you don't talk about this much, but I know you've been through some bloody tough times, right? With the loss and everything else of family, and
I've lost 2 sons. Yes,
I know. My heart goes to you for that. Do you think in that time when you know that this work keeps you going, in a sense that by living your purpose, it just
Sure.
it keeps you going? Yeah.
Hey, look, I'm 82. You know, what am I going to be doing? I'm sitting around, and I mean, I do a crossword puzzle every day, but that's not what I spend my time. And as long as I can, and I've got speaking engagements. My website is www.stantonfriedman.com, and it lists upcoming conferences. Just booked another one yesterday, as a matter of fact. So look, I've spoken in 19 countries. Most recent was Bulgaria, believe it or not. And all 50 states, 10 provinces, and 19 countries. And I've certainly done a lot more traveling than I otherwise would have. I mean, from Australia to Argentina to Saudi Arabia to Korea, Turkey. Biggest crowd I ever had was in Turkey. They had a huge conference, and there were over 2,000 people listening. You know, and here I am, a nice Jewish boy, and I was in Saudi Arabia, in the capital. And I worried. I called them. You sure you're going to let me in when I get there? I don't want to go all that way. And be told I can't come in. And they said, oh, no problem. We've had other Jewish speakers. And there was no problem at all. Jews and Arabs are both Semites. We tend to forget that, you know. And so it was like a meeting of my dad's cousins club many years ago. And a lot of them looked like us, too. So... No, just that seeing the world is kind of nice. I've spoken in Poland, you know, China, Korea. I would never have seen those places.
Yeah, it's just amazing just how much you've traveled, and it's beautiful just to share your story as well, because it's inspiring to other people. It definitely is. I guess one thing that's less inspiring as well, but it's a subject we need to cover, is there is so much fraudulent whistleblowers and contactees out there. That's what I feel, right? I'm trying to have my discerning head on sometimes, right? When I'm doing my show nowadays, more than I had a few months ago even. And it's very difficult, when someone says they've had contact, or when someone says they're a whistleblower, you want to get them on because you want to share this potential truth, right? But when something's too good to be, when they're talking about, they've traveled here and there, or, some of the claims that some of them make, when it's too good to be true, surely some internal alarm bell should resonate. And,
yes.
does that mean that we don't share their stories? Well, kind of, I feel that way sometimes, almost, because or at least if they come onto the show, they've got to be challenged.
Well, I do, and I have what I call a big gray basket. When I look at something, and after I check as much as I can, I say there's not enough data for me to reach a decision about whether yay or nay. So put it in the gray basket and let's move on. Not everything is capable of being proven one way or another, but certainly I believe very strongly, and we say this in the new book, Fact, Fiction, and Flying Saucers, that you got to go to archives. You got to validate stuff. Even if somebody says he was in the military at Roswell, give me your DD-214. That says where you were assigned when you were in the military. Stuff like that. And especially with regard to Roswell, I've got the base yearbook for 1947. Somebody says he was there, I go look in the yearbook. I've got an alphabetized list of all the people who were there. And if he's there in the yearbook, then I know he was there. You know? There are some people who were on leave when the pictures were taken, but that's a small percentage. What I'm saying is verify. That's the key word. Validate. There are ways to do that. And if people make claims, if a guy says he was in the military, he should have discharge papers. That's not too much to ask. And maybe you agree not to spread them around in public, but still, you're entitled to know if he's going to make such a claim and he wants you to accept it, then provide evidence. Evidence is the key word. It isn't not what story sounds good or bad. It's what is the evidence. And, I have a strong commitment to dealing with evidence.
Yes, you do, and I like that about yourself. I really do. Back in '78, when you were, delving into the Roswell case, obviously you broke the Roswell case.
Yes.
When you're in the presence of these people who you have proven that were there, like Jesse Marcel, and they're telling you their story, how does that feel to be in their presence? That, oh my God, have these people actually had first-hand contact with something? That greater than ourselves in the sense of where they've come from. They've from outer space, man, and that they've been there. And isn't there that part of your brain that's like, no, it can't be true? But then everything's kind of checking out.
No, I have watched the world change a great deal in my long life. Look, I spent a lot of time with Betty and much more with Betty Hill than Barney because he died back in the '60s. And she lived till after 2000. But I spent a lot of time with them, and I was very favorably impressed. And a television station did something that they rarely did. I was living in Pittsburgh, KDKA, the big station in town, and I had done my first show. It was on a show called, believe it or not, Contact. Honest. And I did the show several times, and I enjoyed doing it. And it was because of that somebody heard me. I gave my first lecture, and I did more shows and gave more lectures. But anyway, with Betty and Barney, the station called me one day to say they were coming to town to do a show, and told me where they were staying. Now that's very rare. Normally they don't tell people that, but they trusted me. So I called, and we had dinner together. So it gave me a chance to spend a few hours with them. First, just the three of us. And that was great, and I'm grateful that same station gave me my first copy of the Condon Report, the University of Colorado study. They said, Stan, we're getting an advance copy. Would you like it if you'll appear on our show on such a date? They didn't tell me it's 865 pages long. But I did say yes. I can't say I read every page. But what I'm saying is, if you get the media to pay attention, and that they decide you're okay, they can be a big help. And so I can't just knock all media people because they've been a big help to me. And sometimes I'll go back and check files for certain dates and stuff like that. So it's been a great opportunity to get to know a lot of people. Yes, I was very impressed with Jesse Marcel, and equally impressed with his son, Dr. Jesse Marcel. And there's a man, would you believe, he was called back into the military at age 68 to fly. He was a flight surgeon, and he was also a helicopter pilot. And he was called back in to fly helicopters. He put in 225 combat hours after age 68 in the Middle East, where it got to be 130 degrees during the day sometimes, and had to wear a helmet and a sidearm, and and he wasn't complaining about it, but I admired him for it. He came back from there with traumatic stress disorder, not surprising considering the circumstances. And it does irk me still that the United States was so hard up for people to fly helicopters in combat that they had to bring in somebody at age 68. Holy cow. That's really weird. But Jesse was a great guy. And I don't know of anybody else who's been in both his house and his father's house. So I try to get firsthand information. And I think it's useful. Walter Howe, I was the first one to find him. He put out the press release about Roswell. And it was a big help in helping locate people and stuff. A colleague and I went on it. We found 62 people within a year of first finding out about Roswell. That was before the computer was around, so the old-fashioned way, you call information, you dig things out from A to B to C, etc. But you got to do the work. But I feel the same way about physics stuff. I mean, I worked on some pretty far-out things: fission rockets, fusion rockets, nuclear power plants for space. It was great. I really enjoyed it. If the programs hadn't been canceled.
Well, it's like they say they cancelled the Star Wars programs. Did they? Did they really? Who knows?
Well, I can't prove that they canceled it. I don't show I know that when I was there.
Yes.
They canceled the man orbiting laboratory program when I was just about to join it to do the ideal job, figure out how flying saucers worked. And when I go in, I heard as I was driving across the country that the program had been canceled. And I walk in with my offer letter, and you realize, she says to me, that we just laid off 5,000 people. Yes, I realized that. Talk about disappointment. Holy cow. They kept me for 3 months, though. I think they legally had to.
Well, look, you've worked on some amazing things. And obviously, it's broadened your horizon, and it got you into what you're doing now,
sure.
Of course. But when you look at the technology leaps that we've had over the past 50 years or more, more technology leaps than in any time of mankind's existence. Do you think that the Roswell crash had anything to do with any reverse engineering and some of the the fiber optics that we've got now and semiconductors, whatever it may be, that's given us this leap of technology?
Well, I guess what I'd say, I think we've learned some things. We can't help but have learned some stuff. The one I point to specifically, I say, look, you got small pieces of strange stuff. You send it out to your best classified lab, and you ask the guy, you don't tell him where you got it. What is this stuff? And he comes back to you and says, it's samarium and cobalt. Why would you put those together? That's not your problem. You go to somebody else. What are the electrical and magnetic properties of this, thermal properties? Again, you don't tell him where you got it. He comes back to you and says, well, I don't know what this stuff is, but I measured the highest magnetic moment of any material I've ever measured. Make a great permanent magnet. And it turns out that samarium and cobalt were the first magnets used in ghetto blasters, speaker magnets, small and powerful. And many years later, I was reading an article. I used to do a weekly science commentary for a radio program, and about new and better permanent magnets, neodymium iron boron. Those are real. I'm not making them up. And at the end of the article, it said the original work on samarium cobalt was done at Wright Air Development Center. That's right, Patterson Air Force Base. I just laughed my head off, but I know where that idea came from. So, you learn something. And it's standard practice in peace and war to try to find out about the other guy's technology. If he's doing something you can't do, you want to know what it is and how you can duplicate it. So I think we have learned something. There's a picture of me in one of my books with my hand on the Apollo 12 command module. It's a round, blunt body. It looks a lot like a flying saucer and nothing like a high-performance airplane, pointy nose, sharp wings, highly streamlined. And I found out that they were doing wind tunnel tests on round, blunt bodies at Wright Pat in 1947. So somebody might have said, hey, these guys are going fast and they can make it work. Why don't we check that out? Oh, look at that. So I think we've probably learned a great deal. I don't mean anybody handed us something and told us how it worked. On the other hand, if you gave the smartest people on the planet back in 1934 a digital wristwatch, they'd have known it kept time. There was no way in the world. I mean, they knew there was a battery. There's no way in the world they could analyze the chip, and certainly no way that they could duplicate it at that time. Life is complicated.
Absolutely no way. No, that's very correct. Well, I have got the chance to interview when I go to America to interview Philip J. Corso's son. Now, I mean, I know your stance on this book and Philip J. Corso.
Yes.
I mean, even I find it a bit far-fetched sometimes, with the, his national security clearance, the alien body, and other bits of the book. But why would this man come out to have fabricated this lie, in a sense?
Remember, I'm a physicist and not a psychologist, but I met Corso, and I think he was a wannabe, wanted to leave an important legacy, be somebody. But I remember I checked on a lot of his claims, and you just mentioned one about the body's security clearance. That was a gross violation of security. Nobody would do that. Hey, come on, you want to see an alien body? Look what I've got. That makes no sense. I also found he wasn't telling the truth about some things, and the dates were wrong, and and also. The Army Group Foreign Technology Division at the Pentagon, only two people in it, and he was the junior officer. The Air Force Foreign Technology Group at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and I went there many times to see them for a project I was working on. They had lots of smart engineers and scientists. Philip was not an engineer or a scientist, and he was the second in command of two people. And there were other things that just didn't make any sense. So all I can say is he wanted to be somebody. He did get to be somebody. I was there in Roswell when the book came out. And that the senator who wrote the foreword for the book, withdrew it later because he wrote a foreword for a different book.
Yes, yes, there's all this to take into account. So... Yeah, well, yeah. I've just got to mention. I'm kind of pleased that you met him. Actually, it's kind of cool that you actually did meet him, and that you weren't just looking at it from the perspective of actually not meeting him. And
met his son too at a conference.
Yeah. But then, okay, let's switch to another researcher that's a friend of mine as well, who's looked at the Roswell incident. I don't know if you what you think of him, Donald Schmidt. And
I know Don. Quite well for a lot of years.
He done the book The Day After Roswell. Would you concur that a lot of his research is in alignment with what you discovered as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't disagree on a lot. We even did a joint effort, each of us doing half. We each gave a program down in Roswell back in September. So, or buddies, if you want to call it that.
Good.
I'm a little old to be called somebody's buddy.
No, that's beautiful. I just wanted to. I've always wanted to ask you that actually, because obviously Don's done some great work on the Roswell case, and had a lot of.
And he'll be there in Roswell for the 70th anniversary coming up, and so will I.
Wow, the 70th anniversary of the cover-up. That's going to be incredible, isn't it? You've got
70th anniversary of the event.
Of the event, sorry. Of the event, yeah. Have you got anything big planned for that, or?
Well, I'm going to speak there, and he's going to speak there, and a lot of other people. Kathleen Martin will speak there.
Wonderful.
It'll be, I should give you a number. Last year, 204,000 people visited the International UFO Museum and Research Center in Roswell. This is a town of 50,000 that's 200 miles from Albuquerque, Amarillo, El Paso. One of the most visited tourist sites, if you will, in New Mexico. Out in the middle of nowhere. And if you're there, it's because you want to be there, because it isn't on the way to anywhere.
I can't wait to go there, and I'm sure the government knows it's there. Put it that way. I'm sure.
Well, a couple of presidents have visited there.
Oh my gosh, really?
Oh yeah, politicking, but they know it's a way to get publicity.
Wow.
Obama was there.
Wow. Okay. Do you think? Well, I guess we've covered it. Yeah, I mean, I suppose that current governments. Do you think the secret's compartmentalized so much that the actual, president is not aware of the full facts in a sense?
Well, the president doesn't have a need to know for everything. And besides, the president meets with the press all the time. The less he knows, the more sure you are that he won't reveal anything highly classified that he doesn't know. So, because you are the president doesn't give you a need to know for everything. That's a key factor. And compartmentalization is exactly the right word. And I ran into that. I was working on radiation shielding for nuclear airplanes. In the abstract journal, there were classified abstracts of Navy work on radiation shielding for nuclear submarines. I tried to get copies of those reports. I had the right clearance. Couldn't get a need to know. Admiral Wickover said, "No way, Jose."
Well, this whole, we've been talking about the disclosure movement from, will this secret ever come out? Do you think we are the disclosure by me and you and all the other people that you've had these conversations with and all the conferences you go to? Do you think we are the disclosure in the sense, the people in this movement?
Well, in a sense we are. We're getting people to think more thoughtfully about all aspects of the problem. Why the cover-up, what's going on, what do we know, what don't we know, what do we wish we knew that we can't, and so forth and so on. So, I think by bringing sensible data, facts, etc. to the table, that's a part of the disclosure movement. And I've had people tell me they'd never thought seriously about this. They happened to come to one of my lectures. I was on their campus speaking, and that got them thinking about it and reading books. And after that, it's not a question of converting them. It's a question of getting them to realize there's a lot out there that we don't know about. A lot that indicates that aliens are visiting.
Well, there is SETI, and they would say different as well in some respects of what.
Well, there's an interesting difference between SETI and ufology. Ufologists go to facts, data, evidence, look at our references. SETI starts off with a premise. There are aliens out there. They are not coming here. They are trying to send us messages for some reason we don't know, using techniques that we don't know, and we have no evidence of that whatsoever. But we will never talk about UFOs in our books. I got a whole chapter in Flying Saucers and Science on the cult of SETI. I've debated Dr. Seth Shostak on a big radio program here. I won the debate. Are flying saucers real? 57% agreed with me that yes. 33% agreed with him, and 10% said, I don't know. I lambaste SETI quite a bit. There are several areas that they just don't know anything about. They won't look at the scientific studies of UFOs, and I talk about 5 of them. They know nothing about interstellar travel, fancy technology. I worked on fission rockets, fusion rockets, propellants for space, etc. They know nothing about government security. I mean, why would you classify anything about astronomy, They think that the governments can't keep secrets. Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson said the proof the government can't keep secrets is how much we know about President Clinton's genitalia. Very funny. Totally unrelated to the question. Can governments keep secrets? Of course. I show whited out NSA UFO documents on which you can read 1 sentence per page. Everything else is whited out. I show CIA documents, all blacked out. And you don't get originals, you get Xeroxes, so there's no way you can scrape off the black or the white and find out what's underneath. But again, put evidence there. They don't go to archives. They don't read the reports. Look at the reference lists at the end of their books. Nothing about studies. So, I say stands for silly effort to investigate, SETI.
I love it. I love it. You know, one guest that I was trying to get on my show was Dr. Stephen Greer, and so far I've not been able to get him on.
I'm surprised.
What do you think of? And I'm not here. We're not here to tear anyone down or anything. And I'm not after. I'm really not. I'm just trying to work out what angle these like Dr. Stephen Greer is coming from. What do you think of his work?
I'm not terribly impressed. Many people who've been at these gatherings that he has didn't see what he claims to have seen. At one point, he was offering for $600 you could spend a weekend at his home, and he'd tell you everything he knew about flying saucers, but you'd have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. That sounds very funny from somebody who's head of the disclosure movement, doesn't it? You can't disclose what I tell you. And he is much longer on claims than he is on evidence. He said he briefed the head of the CIA. Well, it turns out they were at a dinner party together. I don't consider that a briefing, to tell you the truth. So he does his thing. I do mine. We've met. I've heard him speak.
I'd be very interested in meeting him as well. You know, that's the thing. I think we've all got our own truth, right? And other people's truth, it's, well, how does that feel inside? What's your internal radar saying? How truthful is that? And I think discernment and everything else we spoke about in this program as well. Thank you for being transparent there and honest about your opinions. Again, it's very, very interesting. I mean, look, I'm sat here, I channel, right? So you could say I do some oddball things as well, right? But that's just my truth, right? And, I can't convince anybody that what's coming through me when I do this is genuine or not. I just, do my best to be in the moment and to be a clear filter and let it come through. And, if it's coming from love and not demanding anything else but love, well, not demand, no demands, right? But it's just, it's comes from love. Then that's then I'm better off to do it for it to be more helpful to people than not do it. Right.
I agree with you.
So I'm not, so as I, talking about Stephen Greer, I'm just saying, look, I've got my own thing.
He does his thing, and we do ours.
Exactly. Well, and there's the other camp as well. I know we're almost at the top of the hour here where we are. We're just over actually. The ancient alien theorists, because obviously, it's popular TV and everything else, right? But what's your general opinion on that?
Well, there's a lot of garbage, and there's some good stuff. And I would be astonished if aliens hadn't been visiting here for thousands of years. There's a wonderful book by Dr. Barry Downing called The Bible and Flying Saucers. He has a bachelor's in physics and a doctor of divinity. Divine physics is his beat. And I'm satisfied that there is enough evidence to say that there have been past visitations. Just waiting for the Earthlings to get their act together, I guess. I don't know. But that doesn't mean I believe everything that people tell me about ancient aliens. But I was at a conference where a couple from the University of Delaware gave a paper in which they talked about 11 old societies on this planet. All had stories about craft, vehicles coming down from the sky and beings getting out. 11 out of 11 is pretty impressive. So I think we've been a way station for a long time. They're being punished. Spend 2 weeks on Earth, guys. I don't punish you for a lifetime. I don't know.
Well, okay. What do you think? I mean, look, this is always. I've always thought about this, right? When we look at the ancient alien theory and we look at the ideas of Zachariah Stitchin, for example, that we were genetically altered. Yeah. We talk about we've come from apes, we've evolved from apes, but I've never seen that pinnacle point in anyone's lifetime really where they've said, "Oh, I saw an ape talk. An ape talked to me, and that's that's the same process now as what mankind went through, and that special time when."
Well, I'm wary of that much. On the other hand, it makes sense to me if we look at the age of the universe in the neighborhood, at least 4 billion years. Actually, the universe, 13 billion years. And anyway, it's a long time compared to our current knowledge of history of us. I would think that there have been many visits, maybe many civilizations. There's a lot we don't know. Look, what's his name? The guy who found the proof of the Iliad. His name is moving around in my head someplace. 1800s. Well, end of the 19th century, yeah. Schliemann, Heinrich Schliemann. He found where Troy was. After everybody said, there's no Troy, that's just a story, it's mythology. Well, he had money enough to afford to have guys dig down 75 feet. And they found Troy. Now, how much of the planet have we dug down 75 feet? You know, and Troy was only a few thousand years ago. So, absence of evidence is not evidence for absence.
And how much have we actually, looked at or just, researched our deepest oceans as well?
Not much.
No.
Not much.
No.
No, there's plenty of the planet that's unexplored.
Yeah. Well, no. Thank you for sharing that. What would you say then, as we conclude here? What would you say could be the most important message of your work?
Well, that we need to look at a much broader picture of just what we can see down the street. That we live in a galactic neighborhood. I think that there are loads of civilizations out there, and some of them are coming here, and I tremble at what I think they must think of us. Primitive society, as I said, whose major activity is tribal warfare. I think we need to be ashamed of how we've spent our resources. Spending $1 trillion this year on things military when thousands of kids die every day of preventable disease or starvation is not plus on our side. So it's made me think more about the bigger picture, how I would like the world to be, and how we need to realize that we need to be decent to each other. We have a history on that.
Oh gosh, Stanton, thank you for sharing that message. I really appreciate that. Well, all I'll say is, Stanton Friedman, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Have a good one.